Hello, everybody, and welcome to Nature Source Care. My name is Dr. Funda Goldman. I'm a naturopathic physician, and in today's talk, I was going to cover the medicinal benefits of cinnamon. And this is part of the larger kitchen pharmacy series that I'm creating here on the channel. So let's go ahead. Just a note before we really get into it. The information presented here is for educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. For any symptoms that persist or worsen, please consult with a qualified medical professional. It is always best to determine the root cause of any disease and to develop a comprehensive treatment plan. And while botanical medicine, nutritional remedies can be very effective, they may not be appropriate for everyone or as a single therapy. Also, keep in mind the two most common side effects of any plant-based medicine are digestive upset and skin itching. So, yeah, you can always be sensitive or allergic to plants, right? So, there you go. Okay, so this sort of information about different teas and spices and foods and things like that, nutritional information. I'm developing more content videos like this. So if you want to see more content like this, I would check out my botanical medicine, nutrition, and kitchen pharmacy playlists because I'm all about playlists and I slot my videos into the playlist so that they're easy to find. The other thing to know is that the information presented here in this talk is based on my book, Drink to Your Health: Medicinal Teas, Juices, and Milks from Around the World. It's available for purchase on Amazon if you ever want to pick up a copy. And part of the reason why I wrote this book is that I've been doing nutrition as a naturopathic physician for many years, but I find it hard to find books and information where it integrates different paradigms of medicine. So I wrote this book to incorporate Ayurveda, which is traditional Indian medicine, naturopathic medicine, which is traditional natural medicine, and then also a Western modern paradigm. So this is a integrative nutrition information that I'm presenting here, and is again coming from my book. The other thing is that if you're interested in other, facets or aspects or areas of natural medicine, again, each of my playlists is growing over time, and so there's a lot of information depending on what you might be interested in learning. So I have a whole playlist, a very extensive playlist on Ayurveda, traditional Indian medicine. I have a whole playlist on marma therapy or Ayurvedic acupressure, and I've taught all 117 points of marma therapy. So all those videos are up and available for you if you're interested in learning that. I've also been a yoga teacher for about 20 years now, and so I have videos on yoga and meditation. I have a whole playlist on homeopathy, which is a different paradigm on of energy medicine. And within homeopathy, most of my homeopathy remedy videos are actually on the Bach flower remedies because those are kind of the easiest to start with, I think. And so I've done most of the Bach flowers at this time. I think I only have like 8 left or something like that. So especially Bach flowers, there's a lot to learn on the channel. My nutrition playlist is pretty extensive as well. And again, from our perspective as naturopathic doctors, doctors that specialize in natural medicine, we often call nutrition the first medicine. And I have a playlist on botanical medicine if you're interested in learning more about plants. I have a playlist on hydrotherapy or the therapeutic use of water. I was actually a professor of hydrotherapy for a few years, teaching medical students on how to use water therapeutically. I have a body care playlist for all kinds of physical techniques to keep the body going and keep it optimally functioning. And then I have a growing cleansing playlist. And the cleansing playlist is not just about physical cleansing, but about mental, emotional, and spiritual cleansing as well. So let's learn if you're up for it. All right, so let's get to cinnamon now. Um, so the parts and method used to make tea or use cinnamon in a functional therapeutic way. First of all, you're mostly using the bark. And the other thing is that you can use either infusion or decoction methods for specifically making teas. And if you're not familiar with the details on infusion or decoction methods, I have a video called Different Methods for Making Medicinal Teas to help you out with that. So you can check that out. If we're talking about Ayurveda, traditional Indian medicine, which is a very energetic, mostly an energetic paradigm of medicine, then Cinnamon has the qualities of decreasing vata, increasing pitta, and decreasing kapha. So these words may not mean much to you if you're not familiar with Ayurveda. But vata is essentially a wind energy. So when things are cold and dry. So cinnamon helps when there are conditions in the body and the mind that are cold and dry because it's a warming herb essentially. Then there's pitta. Pitta is more of a fiery energy. So since cinnamon is a warming herb, you can overdo cinnamon. Um, Cinnamon is actually a fairly balanced herb. So for most people, you know, they could do quite a bit of cinnamon without having a problem. But if they have a lot of pitta, then it might be a fire energy, like inflammation of the mind or body, then it might be a problem. And then the other one here is kapha. So kapha energy is earth energy. So you can kind of think of it as like cold, heavy, like the earth, like the ground. So the thing about cinnamon is that it helps to move things gently through the body, like increase circulation. It's also a warming herb. So those warming and gently moving energies help to balance the cold, dense, wet energies of earth. Okay, so there you go. So, and then in terms of taste and effects, again, these are all energy from the energetic paradigm of Ayurveda, is that cinnamon has the taste of being pungent and sweet and astringent all at the same time. So it's a little bit spicy, it's a little bit sweet. It's not like oregano, where it's like clearly hot, but there's no sweetness to it. And that's what makes the cinnamon like a gently warming herb. The other thing is that cinnamon is astringent, which is important. So astringent herbs will help bind tissues together. And one of the properties of cinnamon is that it helps with bleeding, and that's the reason why, is because it does have this astringent property. Well, it can kind of slowly gently bring tissues together, especially if there's like small cuts or, um, issues with the integrity of like the skin or like the organs and stuff like that. As I've been mentioning, it is a warming herb. And then the other thing that's interesting about it is that it's a warming herb, but it's got a sweet after effect. So when we say sweet, we're not talking about taste, although cinnamon does have a sweet taste to it. But when we talk about after effects, sweet basically means that the herb is building in nature. And so you'll also see as I go through the, things, conditions that cinnamon is used for, it's actually helpful in building. So, because sometimes when you have a herb that's really hot and really spicy and really pungent, it clears things, but it can actually be so hot that it can, if you have too much heat or of that spice, or in a very high pitta person or high pitta condition, then you can actually start to destroy tissue because it can cause more inflammation, and there's like sort of again too much fire there. So that's what's nice about cinnamon, is that it's warming and gentle and sweet, but it is also like nourishing in that way. So that's why, cinnamon, it's hard to go wrong with cinnamon. But, again, we'll talk about at least one situation where you got to watch how much cinnamon you're taking in. So let's go through the different systems that cinnamon affects. So in terms of the nervous system, cinnamon can help to relieve pain and tension because, again, there's this sort of warm, gentle, but kind of nourishing energy of it. So it's sort of like, cinnamon, I kind of think of cinnamon as like a herbal hug. You know, so you might think of it that way as well. Um, and then a respiratory system, so colds, coughs, congestion, bronchitis. So most of these you can see. Let me see a little sip of the tea I have right now. Sorry about that. Anyway, colds, coughs, congestion, bronchitis. Most of these respiratory conditions are slightly congestive, meaning that, from an Ayurvedic perspective, there's some kapha here, some earth energy, because it's sort of stuck heavy energy. And the other thing is it's cold. So if you give a gently warming herb like cinnamon, that's going to also increase circulation. You can almost kind of think of like slowly melting the congestion. Again, if the congestion's not too extreme, right? Because cinnamon is a fairly gentle herb, but powerful nonetheless. But when you've got extreme forms of congestions, that's maybe when you need like a more higher heating, more of a heating and more intense type herb. All right, in terms of the cardiovascular system, cold extremities, because again, cinnamon helps to improve circulation and bring, fresh, warm blood to, the extremities. The like fingers and toes are generally about a degree colder than the core temperature of the body. And then it's also a heart tonic. And, again, it's sort of like when I said cinnamon's like an herbal hug. Even like for the physical heart, not just the emotional heart, there's this kind of gentle, warming, nourishing energy to the heart to support the heart rather than push the heart. Okay. Gastrointestinal system, it can be helpful there with indigestion, gas, bloating, also diarrhea. Diarrhea, because there's, the stool is loose and that sort of thing. By giving a little bit of a gentle astringent herb like this, it can help to bind the colon and the rectum, that sort of thing, and the GI a little bit. So that it can slow down diarrhea. So if you're ever like traveling or something like that, cinnamon's a pretty easy herb to find most places in the world. So even if you had a little bit of like water, cinnamon in your water or cinnamon tea, um, that could potentially be helpful. And the other thing is that, excuse me, cinnamon increases the appetite. So that may be a quality or effect that you may or may not want. Um, but maybe again, since this is some people when they get stressed out, for example, they lose their appetite, and so something like having cinnamon tea, again, this herbal hug, warm and fuzzy teddy bear hug type energy that cinnamon brings, and also start to bring the appetite. It's like if you relieve the tension and you help with digestion and you're just gently moving things to a kind of easy, I kind of think of like a summer breeze type energy for gentle warming herbs like that. Um, it tends to just settle again the nerves, the stomach, and everything, and then people gently get back into balance without being like trying to push somebody too fast into balance. Yeah. Then we have the genitourinary system, so frequent urination, and this potentially can be for a couple of reasons. There is an antibacterial function to cinnamon, although again, depending on the bacteria and depending on how excessive or strong the bacteria are, and if they're immune to certain herbs or drugs, or because we have a lot of drug-resistant bacteria in our world these days. But also, again, that astringent property of cinnamon of like binding things together can potentially help with frequent urination, depending on, again, we always have to get to the root cause, depending on the cause of the frequent urination. The musculoskeletal system, so arthritis is helped with this kind of herb because, again, in arthritis, when you have problems with a joint, there's a capsule around the joint to protect it and stabilize the joint, like your knee, for example. And because of that capsule, the capsule is helpful because it stabilizes the joint. But the thing is, the capsule also prevents really good blood flow around joints. So if there's inflammation and there's swelling, you're going to get even more congestion. And that's going to back up the circulation even more. So you don't get the fresh blood with the nutrition and oxygen to the knee to build it up and repair it. You also don't get a good flushing out of all the inflammatory markers and things like that that are causing the swelling, perhaps pain and degeneration, depending on what kind of arthritis you have. So again, having the cinnamon in the diet and drinking some tea. Again, you can't go too far wrong most of the times with cinnamon, but you can use it to help with, again, this gentle increased flow of circulation to help with things like arthritis. And sometimes you'll even find like I've seen some topical balms and things like that with cinnamon in them um, for things like sore muscles and arthritis and stuff like that. So, that's why you might see cinnamon in some of those topical products as well. For the immune system, I did mention there's some antibacterial properties of cinnamon and also antifungal cinnamon. antifungal properties as well. Um, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to everybody, but like, for example, I've cut myself a few times in the kitchen. And one of the things I sometimes do is I'll put some cinnamon on the cut. Because there are antibacterial properties of cinnamon. The other thing is because it stops bleeding because of the astringent properties. So that actually works pretty well to stop bleeding. Again, listen to my cautionary note. That may not be for everything and for everybody. And again, for large cuts, I probably wouldn't do that. I'd probably just go straight to the urgent care ER for that kind of stuff. Make sure you don't need stitches. Then we have here female and male system. So for women, you have painful, absent, excessive menses. So painful because again, this pain reliever and tension. Absent. So usually when women don't have menses, that's usually because their body energetically is too cold. So if we bring gentle warmth to the body and we bring, gentle circulation, because sometimes also the absence of menses can be not only that women can be too cold, but it can be that their system's too dry. So either usually absence of menses indicates too much vata or too much kapha. Then we have excess menses. So again, because you can almost think of cinnamon as an amphoteric type of herb. Amphoteric meaning balance. Like it's a balancing type of herb. It doesn't typically, unless you do like tons of it, it doesn't typically cause a problem because it has these kind of sweet, spicy, warming, building. It's a mix of energies can kind of used in a lot of cases that seem contradictory, but if you understand the energetics, it makes sense. So the reason why excessive menses is here is because excessive menses with too much bleeding, again, the astringent properties can help with that. So, again, that's why cinnamon is almost like a, great kind of first aid herb. You kind of think about it that way. So ovarian cysts and fibroids, the reason for these two is, again, these are growths here. So these are indications of too much kapha, too much congestion energy. And so you can bring like a gentle flow to these areas to help relieve congestion. And, sometimes there's pain associated here. And then we've got the pain relieving property of cinnamon. The other thing is sometimes like with fibroids, there's a lot of bleeding. So I have given cinnamon to like women who have pretty excessive bleeding from fibroids. Also endometriosis, which seems sort of contradictory. You have a lot of pain usually, and you kind of think of endometriosis as pain and inflammation and dryness and bleeding here. Sometimes bleeding, actually not so much bleeding, but like dryness and pain and inflammation. But again, because of the sort of contradictory nature of cinnamon, you'll get this warmth, you'll get nourishment, you'll get increased circulation here to help relieve the pain of endometriosis and bring more circulation to the uterus. Then for men, again, we have this kind of, sweet after effect. So again, a building, nourishing after effect of the herb. And so for men, this helps to increase semen, in case they're looking to have kids, and also impotence. So in terms of, having and maintaining an erection, because again, you get this gentle flow, increased gentle flow of circulation and also the decrease in tension. So a lot of men, there's usually one or two main issues there. Sometimes they're just stressed out, especially like younger guys. I see that it's mostly like stress and tension from working too much and that sort of thing. So they need to kind of chill out on that side. And then sometimes if the circulation is compromised, and this is usually more for like older men, like once they start developing things like, high cholesterol and heart problems and stuff like that, and their heart, starts to maybe have some issues, then, having something like cinnamon, regularly in the diet can help with, again, that gentle blood flow. And that's, like drugs like Viagra and things like that. That's part of how they work is that they increase blood flow. But of course, like cinnamon isn't going to be nearly as strong as that. So again, it can just be like a gentle, supportive herb. Yeah. Nutritionally, cinnamon is high in bioflavonoids. So the bioflavonoids can help to build like the sensitive, fragile mucous membranes of the body. So like in the respiratory system, the nose, the GI system, that sort of thing. Generally, for general purposes and kind of all-encompassing purposes, actually cinnamon's used a lot, and I've used it a lot for people who have diabetes, pre-diabetes, because it helps to also gently balance blood sugar. Again, this isn't gonna, give you, carte blanche to go and eat a bunch of sugar. It's not that strong, but it can again be just like a gentle, supportive thing. And again, with diabetes, if diabetes is fairly developed in somebody, the thing is when you have diabetes, the blood, you can kind of think of the blood becomes a little bit heavier, almost like maple syrup. It becomes sticky because there's sugar in the blood. And that stickiness, it makes it harder for the blood to move through like the small tissues, like the fingers and the toes. And that's why when people really get advanced diabetes, it can, their circulation in fingers and toes and stuff like that can get compromised because the blood vessels are so small, the capillaries are only one cell thick. So if you have this like thick blood with a lot of sugar, like maple syrup, like, blood, that's how I think about it, running through these small capillaries, well, then you're going to get, congestion there. And then you're not going to get blood flow, great blood flow with a lot of oxygen and nutrition. So then the tissues are going to start to, get sick and potentially die off. Because they're not being supported with good blood flow. And then also, you're not going to, again, sweep out the inflammation and get out sweep out the metabolites and waste products of the cells of those small areas of the body. And then again, diabetes also affects other small vessels like in the brain, in the lungs, and the kidneys, So, I do have quite a few of my diabetes patients, they'll put, if they drink water all day, I just suggest putting cinnamon in their water. Or they can drink tea if they want to make a tea like that. But a lot of people, since they're drinking water, it's just easy for them to put, some cinnamon in their water and drink that. And usually with that, I like per cup, cinnamons can be a little bit strong taste-wise, so per cup I usually suggest about a fourth of a teaspoon. Because otherwise it kind of gets a little bit gritty for taste reasons. So anyway, just to give you some potential guidelines for how much. And then bleeding, I've been mentioning several times. It's also a bit of a detoxifier because again, it helps, it's a bit warming and it helps the circulation. So it's going to help move sticky stuff up and out of the body. And then again, cinnamon is used for flavoring. It's in all kinds of, foods and products and stuff like that. So in a lot of ways, cinnamon is similar to ginger, but it's not as aggravating to pitta, this fire energy. So ginger, especially, I haven't done the ginger video yet, but I will. But when we get to ginger, like even fresh ginger is less kind of fire pitta inducing than dry ginger. Dry ginger is actually quite hot and can, bring too much of that energy to the body in situations. The other thing is that cinnamon helps to digest black tea. So if black tea bothers you for some reason, you might put a little cinnamon in there, and that might be kind of a nice combo. I tend to drink that actually myself, black tea with a little bit of cinnamon in the evenings, and it kind of, it's a nice kind of chill out type tea, and then also it kind of settles. It's kind of nice, after dinner to just harmonize the GI so that there's no GI issues. So yeah, it's kind of I tend to drink that in the evening myself. So the caution here, one situation where you might want to watch like how much cinnamon you're taking in is pregnancy. So again, this isn't a contraindication, but just low doses in pregnancy. You don't want to go overboard with too much cinnamon in that kind of situation, because again, you have a bunch of fragile, um, circulation system building for the embryo, fetus, child. And then there's all these blood vessels and things like that between the mom and the child. So again, small doses of cinnamon should help that along and support that, but too much might be a little bit too vigorous for that kind of fragile situation. Okay, so there you go. The medicinal properties of cinnamon and all different kinds of ways and conditions you can use it for. So again, this presentation was based on my book called Drink to Your Health: Medicinal Teas, Juices, and Milks from Around the World. If you ever want a copy, it's available on Amazon. I do have another YouTube channel on Vedic astrology, ancient Indian astrology. So that name of that channel is Light Vedic Astrology. And most of the photography in my talks are photos I've taken myself. I have an online photography gallery and gift shop if you're ever interested in kind of more art and photography. You can see all that all my photos there at fineartamerica.com. So yeah, as always, thank you for your time. I was appreciating you stopping by and all the different ways that you support my work in the channel. So whether it's liking videos or subscribing or posting lovely comments, or a lot of people say, this really helped me, or really enjoyed the talk. All that kind of stuff is great feedback for me. So I appreciate all that. Yeah, some people send in donations. So that's all. Again, any which way that you choose to support what I do is appreciated, especially when it comes, from your heart. So thank you. So hopefully you found this talk useful and interesting and helpful to you. And until the next one, you take care. Namaste.